Good afternoon, all of you. Warm greetings. We would like to thank Professor Gautam Pal on behalf of the Department of Computer Science and Engineering, Haldia Institute of Technology, for accepting our invitation and delivering a lecture on importance of Indian knowledge system in school and college education. Here is the short description in this resume. Dr. Gautam Pal completed his bachelor degree in computer engineering from IIEST Shibpur, master degree in computer science from State University of New York at Albany, USA, and PhD in cryptography from Indian Statistical Institute, ISI, Kolkata. He was an assistant professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering of Jadavpur University, Kolkata, India for 7 years. Currently, Dr. Pal is serving as the head of the Department of Cryptography and Security Research Unit of Indian Statistical Institute, ISI, Kolkata. Dr. Pal received the prestigious Alexander von Humboldt Award from Germany and the Young Scientist Award from the National Academy of Sciences, India, along with other accolades. Dr. Pal has supervised 6 postdocs, 16 PhDs, 24 master theses, and more than 50 bachelor's projects. He has also been actively involved in 14 sponsored research projects by national and international funding agencies. So far, he has co-authored 2 textbooks, more than 130 publications in international journals and conferences, and delivered close to 150 special invited seminars. Dr. Pal's professional research areas in classical and quantum cryptography. However, Dr. Paul has deep interest in education, pedagogy, psychosocial development of students, and Indian knowledge system. He is also well known as a motivational speaker on the synthesis of science and spirituality, lifestyle management, yoga, and stress management. Welcome, Mr. Paul. Professor Mr. This is a sir. This is a small token of appreciation from our side, sir. Sir, please unmute yourself.
Okay, am I audible now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Audible.
Okay, nice. Yes, thank you for your gift. I have to accept it virtually now.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so I will share my screen, and for the purpose of better bandwidth during the presentation, I will, close my video, and later on I can turn it on during interaction. Okay. Are the slides visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So interrupt me if the slides become invisible or I am inaudible. So
Yes, sir. Visible.
okay, fine, nice. So as the topic is about importance of Indian knowledge systems in school and higher education, of course, from the point of view of National Education Policy 2020. So first, let us look at these terms, education, knowledge system, Indian knowledge system, etc., as it is explained in National Education Policy. And then we can talk about its integration in our system and its implications. Okay. So in NEP 2020, before quoting about education from NEP 2020, I would like to begin with the famous quote by Swami Vivekananda on education. He told that education is the manifestation of the perfection already in man. Again, we have to understand here man is a gender neutral term which denotes the entirety of mankind irrespective of the different genders. So the meaning is that education brings out what treasure you already have inside you, what is internal to you, right? It is not something external. External education environment works as a catalyst, right? To boost, to grow, to blossom what is already inside you, just like a blossoming of a flower, right? And the NEP 2020 document, if we go through the document, the very first line says that education is fundamental for achieving full human potential, developing an equitable and just society, and promoting national development. So you see that the, the spirit that Swami Vivekananda has portrayed in his definition of education is clearly manifested in the NEP 2020 document, because it says that it is fundamental for achieving full human potential. That means the human potential is already there within human, but whether we'll achieve that potential or not, that's a different thing. So the potential is a possibility, the potential is a scope, a potential is a goal, right? And if we work hard, we can achieve that goal. So that is the reasoning. Also, 2 points are very important here, that we want to have equitable and just society. Means we need equality in terms of treatment towards each other, in terms of respect towards each other, in terms of facilities towards each other. But we understand that we are all different individuals. We have our own different capacities, different abilities, and different skill sets. So of course there will be variety, there will be differences between individual in terms of the educational discipline, in terms of the professional career, in terms of the salary, job profile, everything. Those differences we cannot mitigate, but we can have equality at least in terms of opportunity, that everyone gets equal opportunity, everyone gets equal scope, and everyone gets equal support. Then how much that can be utilized, that is up to the individual's potential and up to the individual's effort and hard work and capacity. Okay, so with that we move to the next section, which is page 4 of NEP 2020, that talks about Indian knowledge. Okay, so instead of just reading these excerpts, I would like to explain a little bit what they actually denote. So see, the first thing, all these are in quotations, so I have taken them as it is from the NEP 2020 document. So it says that the rich heritage of ancient and eternal Indian knowledge and thought has been a guiding light for this policy. I have marked in bold certain aspects. So in the document, these are not marked in bold, but I have chosen to mark them bold because I thought it is really important. As you can see, the rich heritage has been termed as both ancient and eternal. Right? Apparently, these terms are contradictory. What is ancient cannot be eternal. But the peculiarity or the speciality or the uniqueness of Indian knowledge is that it is both ancient as well as eternal. Right? So, what does it mean? It means that this knowledge that we are talking about has passed the test of time, right? The knowledge may have been enhanced but it has not been falsified. The knowledge may have been added with lot of scientific theories, experiments, evidences, but the knowledge has never been denied, right? So the knowledge has been enriched, but its truth is evident eternally. So that is the meaning. We have to appreciate that. The second point says that the pursuit of knowledge, which is jnana in Sanskrit, wisdom, prajna, and truth, satya, was always considered in Indian thought and philosophy as the highest human goal. So we see that the here we do not use the term education, right? So education is something which you obtain through a curriculum, through training in a school or college or an university, through practical experimentation, right? But the purpose of education is not only to give you information, not only to give you skill, but also to give you knowledge, which is jnana. So there is a difference between education and knowledge that is hidden here, right? So when education becomes part of your life, when education becomes part of your experience, and when education becomes your thought, your action, and your behavior, then it really becomes knowledge. However, all wisdoms are knowledge, but all knowledge are not wisdom. A knowledge becomes wisdom only when you realize it, you internalize it. So just because you have obtained knowledge, just because you are following education in your life, in your speech, in your words, in your lifestyle, in your personal and professional life, so you are knowledgeable, you are applying the knowledge, fine, but you may not have wisdom. Wisdom means prajna, means special knowledge or realized knowledge. That means you have the concept of the knowledge, you have the meta knowledge about the knowledge. So that's all wisdom is about, right? And truth, these are always considered in human thought and philosophy as the highest human goal. So now we are seeing, after we have looked into what is education, now we are seeing that how the stage is set to go beyond education, to receive knowledge, to go beyond knowledge, to receive wisdom, and to go beyond wisdom to experience truth. Right? Then the third paragraph says that the aim of education in ancient India was not just the acquisition of knowledge as preparation for life. So this is important. Knowledge is for what? Knowledge is for preparation for life in this world, so that you can sustain physically, so that you can sustain psychologically, so that you can sustain intellectually in this world. You can survive in this world, right? So it's not just the acquisition of knowledge as preparation for life in this world that is necessary, but that is not sufficient. So it is also required for life beyond schooling, and also for complete realization and liberation of the self. Now, realization and liberation of the self is a very intricate topic. We don't want to go into it, but we understand that we are talking about something which is beyond just the physical realm, which is beyond our material convenience or convenience, and which is beyond our just maintaining the livelihood and living and performing and surviving in this world, right? So that has to be remembered, and that has to be considered when we talk about Indian knowledge system. Next, in page 5 and 6 of NEP 2020, there are 22 bullets which are termed as the fundamental guiding principles. Okay. Now, out of these 22 bullets, I have picked the bullet number 20, which talks about the Indian knowledge system. It says that one of the fundamental principles is a rootedness and pride in India and its rich, diverse, ancient and modern culture and knowledge systems and traditions. Now we see how it rightly connects with the property of education, right? So, and the property of knowledge, as we have seen here, that in page 4 it talked about ancient and eternal knowledge. So an apparently self-contradictory terminologies, but we discussed how we can understand these two terms, and the same concept is elaborated in page 5 and 6 in bullet number 20 out of the 22 bullets describing the fundamental principles, that ancient and modern culture, you see. So both ancient and modern exist simultaneously. It is ancient because it has been existing for thousands of years. It is modern because it is still relevant. It is still applicable to our life, right? And one of the fundamental principle, 1 out of 22, is a rootedness and pride in India, right? So when I learned English as a child, so my father taught me that there is a difference between pride and vanity. Okay, so vanity is something negative, so which is like a vice. So you boast of something and you think that I am larger than someone else. But pride is something which is positive, which does not compare yourself with others, right? Pride does not make you look down upon others. Pride is internal. It makes you uplift your own conscience. It makes you confident within yourself. So that is the pride that we are talking about here, not just a mere boast or vanity, right? So a rootedness and pride in India and its rich, diverse, both ancient as well as modern culture and knowledge systems and traditions. Okay. Then in page 14, there is a section 4.17, part of section 4. So there are multiple sections in NEP 2000. Section 4 heading is curriculum and pedagogy in schools. In that, there are multiple items, multiple numbered sections. Here we are talking about the section 4.17, right? So let us see what it says. This is about mainly Sanskrit knowledge system. Right. Sanskrit, as the name suggests, it means literally cultured or refined. We know Sanskrit is the mother of all the languages in India, and not only that, but it is the mother of German and other Indo-Occidental languages, right? So let us see what the NEP says about Sanskrit knowledge systems. It says, Sanskrit, while also an important modern language mentioned in the 8th schedule of the Constitution of India, possesses a classical literature that is greater in volume than that of Latin and Greek put together. So one thing you should observe here, that whatever I have written in this page, it is within double quote, which starts from the first bullet and the double quote ends in the last bullet. There are 5 bullets here. So in the NEP document, if you go through page 14, you will see that this is continuous line without any bold or any highlighting. It's a continuous line in one paragraph itself. But in order to explain the concept to you, in order to understand, I have broken the same continuous sentence by these bullets. So we can identify the distinct features and distinct points that are hidden in these statements, right? So the first point is Sanskrit is an important modern language. Look, the modern term has been used. Why? I will explain it later once again, giving some modern linguistic analogs. Mentioned in English, mentioned in the 8th schedule of the Constitution of India, right? Comma, possesses a classical literature that is greater in volume than that of Latin and Greek put together. Why? Because Latin and Greek philosophy, Latin and Greek language, their literature, they are kind of the treasures of the whole world. And when we study world history, we study about them, we appreciate them. But very often we tend to forget or we tend to ignore the fact that the volume of the classical literature written in Sanskrit is much greater than that of Latin and Greek put together. Okay. Then containing vast treasures of mathematics, philosophy, grammar, music, politics, medicine, architecture, metallurgy, drama, poetry, storytelling, and more, known as Sanskrit knowledge system. So here we see the definition of a term called Sanskrit knowledge systems, okay, which comprises of knowledge of all these fields, written by people of various religion. This is something which we must appreciate. The Sanskrit language, its philosophy, its literature are not the property of a particular religion, because these has been authored by people from various religions and as well as various non-religious people as well, and by people from all walks of life and a wide range of socio-economic backgrounds over thousands of years. Okay. And lastly, Sanskrit will thus be offered at all levels of school and higher education as an important enriching option for students, including as an option in the 3-language formula. So we know that in our times or in the previous generation, Sanskrit was there in the secondary school curriculum, particularly in the government curriculum as a mandatory subject. But later on, it was revoked, right? So there is an attempt in NEP 2022 to re-establish that tradition, probably in a different format, but at least to resume it, which has been ignored for many years. And also the page 55 of section 22.15, section 22 heading is Promotion of Indian Languages, Arts and Culture, that also talk about the Sanskrit knowledge systems, which I'm not mentioning here. Okay. Then in the same section, Curriculum and Pedagogy in Schools, we talked about 4.17. Now let us look at 4.27, right, which extends the Sanskrit knowledge system to Indian knowledge system. Now, so it broadens the perspective. So knowledge of India, again, these are within double quote, but I have broken them in terms of points in order to understand and appreciate them. So the knowledge of India will include knowledge from ancient India and its contributions to modern India and its successes and challenges, and a clear sense of India's future aspirations with regard to education, health, environment, etc. So now it connects not only the ancient past and the modern time, but also it connects the unseen future, right? So future aspirations. So it connects past, present, and future. And these elements will be incorporated in an accurate and scientific manner throughout the school curriculum wherever relevant. Third point, in particular, Indian knowledge system, including tribal knowledge and indigenous and traditional ways of learning. Now see, importance has not only been given to the Sanskrit and mainstream languages and culture and lifestyle and knowledge systems, but importance also have been given to tribal knowledge, tribal traditions, indigenous ways of learning, right? So they will also be covered and they will be included in mathematics, astronomy, philosophy, yoga, architecture, medicine, agriculture, engineering, linguistics, literature, sports, games, as well as in governance, polity, and conservation. And an engaging course on Indian knowledge systems will also be available to students in secondary school as an elective. Okay. So this is the proposal that is there in the National Education Policy. Okay. Now, because we are talking about Indian knowledge system so much, starting from the title of this talk, so let us have a deeper look into what is Indian knowledge system, or in short, IKS. So in 29th and 30th July 2023, there was a conference in New Delhi organized by Akhil Bharatiya Shiksha Samagam, ABSS, under Ministry of Education. And there are many thematic sessions, and one such thematic session was on Indian knowledge system. And they have documented the session brief as follows. The Indian knowledge systems comprise of Gyan, Vigyan, and Jivan Darshan that have evolved out of experience, observation, experimentation, and rigorous analysis. Before I go to the next point, let us look at this point more carefully. The Indian knowledge system comprises of Gyan, Vigyan, and Jivan Darshan. So again, Gyan and Vigyan is like knowledge and wisdom, which I have already explained. So Gyan is superficial knowledge, more sort of an information, whereas Vigyan is realized knowledge, which is obtained through experience, right? And Jivan Darshan. So once you have Gyan and Vigyan, it forms the core of your Jivan Darshan, or the philosophy of your life. That means a life full of purpose. What is the purpose? What is the meaning of your life, according to you? So it may vary from individual to individual as well, though there may be societal or cultural influence on it, right? But the key component is that all these Gyan, Vigyan, and Jivan Darshan, they are evolved out of experience, observation, experimentation, and rigorous analysis. Now, what is beautiful here is that these terminologies, the experience, observation, experimentation, rigorous analysis, these we have learned when we started studying scientific experiment in schools, right? When we go to physics lab, chemistry lab, or biology lab in school, we are told that from now on, you will not accept blindly whatever is written in any book. You will first experience it, then you will observe, you will do the experimentation in your own hand in the laboratory, and you will obtain the experimental results, then you will perform rigorous analysis of the results. And then you will be in a position to accept or reject any hypothesis. So, what is beautifully portrayed here is that Indian knowledge system, because it is evolved out of these four pillars of science, which is experience, observation, experimentation, rigorous analysis, I call these four pillars of science. Therefore, Indian knowledge system is a scientific system. It's a scientific knowledge system, right? Even if it includes literature, even if it includes language, even if it includes philosophy, art forms, drama, dance, etc., in parallel with mathematics and other science subjects, even if it includes them, still overall this Indian knowledge system, the evolution of Indian knowledge system is a scientific process. So that's a very core concept which we must understand deeply and appreciate. Second, this tradition of validating and putting into practice has impacted our education, arts, administration, law, justice, health, manufacturing, and commerce. This has happened throughout the history, throughout the past. We have seen how Indian knowledge system has influenced our education, arts, administration, law, justice of the past, and also health and other sectors, business sectors, right? And this has influenced our classical as well as other languages of Bharat. Classical means Sanskrit, other languages, the derivatives of it, that are transmitted through textual, oral, and artistic traditions. So that's pretty easy to understand, straightforward. Okay, further, it goes on to explain that Indian knowledge systems have been existing since ages, but have been overshadowed by Western ways of thinking. Okay. So there is a need to bring a change in the existing public mindset and create public awareness regarding the Indian knowledge system. So the conference acknowledges that though the, the age of Indian knowledge system is quite old, right? It is existing for a long time, but in recent past, it has been overshadowed by Western ways of thinking. So there is nothing wrong about Western ways of thinking. It does not say that the Western ways of thinking is wrong, but we're supposed to have a good mixture of the two, a good balance of the two. So a mixture or a balance means these two systems of knowledge has to be developed side by side. But when we say something has been overshadowed by another thing, that means the Western way is there on top and the Indian knowledge system is hidden at the bottom, and it is not visible, it is not audible, and it is not discussed, and it is not appreciated. So there is no awareness about it. So therefore we have to bring it out from the overshadowed existence so that it is there side by side with Western ways of thinking in a balanced manner. And we have to generate public awareness about it. Second point, rejuvenation of ancient body of knowledge faces challenges like maintaining the genuineness, right? So whenever we try to rejuvenate an ancient knowledge, we can quote something, we can, make some statement, but there must be scientific methods to validate the genuinity and the quality of the material, the genuinity of the source, the quality of the source, and most importantly, the relevance of the knowledge in modern time, right? So knowledge is eternal, but the application of knowledge may vary from time to time. The relevance that we need to have adequate availability of funds for promoting IKS initiatives so as to address modern challenges and promote pride in cultural heritage, intellectual growth, and self-confidence among students and interested persons. That is pretty easy to understand, so I'm not explaining. And the fourth point, incorporating IKS-based curriculum in schools and higher education institutions. Okay, so that's also easy to understand. So with that, now we'll shift gear a little bit and see glimpses of some examples of connection between modern science and Indian knowledge system. Now, there is a statutory warning here that I have picked up the examples as I have mentioned in the title as glimpses of the modern science, right? So I am not claiming that whatever is there in modern science is there in IKS. No, I'm not claiming that. I'm also not claiming that IKS contains the entire theory of modern science. All I'm saying is that there is a connection, there is a relation, there is presence of not all of modern science, but at least some part of it. That's why I have mentioned glimpses in IKS. And I will give only few examples for illustration. There are millions and millions of such examples which can be talked about in a larger forum or in a larger platform, right? So just some examples. Rig Veda 1.119.10 verse around 5000 BC talks about metal wires conducting electricity. Okay. Yajurveda 33.43, that verse talks about laws of gravitation and solar system. I'm not claiming that there is a formula hidden there which we have been known since ages. So, Newton's law, Kepler's law, everything was there. No, I'm not making that statement. I want to make myself very clear. All I'm saying that before even the existence of gravitation was discovered, before even the existence of laws were thought about, there are mention about gravitational force, there are mention about a heavy body attracting a smaller body. So these concepts are there. Right? Then atomic structure is there by Conrad's Vaisheshika Sutra. It was written around 500 BC, much before Rutherford's model or Bohr's model was discovered. So that matter consists of molecules and then atoms, which are kind of indivisible unit of the matter. Like, of course, we can divide atoms into electron, proton, and neutrons, but then we do not retain the property of the matter. Right? A hydrogen atom and an oxygen atom and an iron atom are different because they are different materials. But when we dissect atoms and go into the regime of electron, proton, neutron, we cannot differentiate between electron of one matter and the electron of the other matter. So that's why we say that atom is an indivisible unit of matter. Atom is not indivisible, but it is the unit of matter that is indivisible, which retains the property of the matter. So from that point of view, this concept was there in Vaisheshika Sutra, definitely, by Conrad. Then a very strange example, which is a Purana, one of the 18 Puranas written by Vyasdev, which is called Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavat Puran. According to historians, linguists, and archaeologists, this text was written around 3228 BC. And chapter 3, verse 31, sorry, not chapter 3, but volume 3. So this book has 12 volumes, actually, 3 volume and 31st chapter. There are many verses. It talks about the growth of embryo in mother's womb week by week. So what happens in the first week, what happens in the second week, what happens in the third week, and so on and so forth. Up to the development stage, verse by verse it describes very accurately, which surprisingly matches with our modern day understanding with MRI scan and other test facilities. Okay. Then there is the metallurgy as a subject today, and we see glimpses of concepts of metallurgy hidden in a text which is called Rasopanishad, written around 1100 AD. So it's a relatively modern time, but still 1000 years before today. And it was discovered in this century. There is an article about it in the Indian Journal of History of Science, 1992, by Vijay Deshpande. There is a project on this also, sanctioned by INSA, which I believe is complete by now. It talks about gold and silver making process. And there is one chapter on this text on purification of tin. And many more. So we can talk about Ganit Shastra, mathematics. There are many texts, right? Lilavati, and then Aryabhata's other treatises, Ayurveda, Charak Shushruta. There are a lot of discussions on these topics in various forums. I'm not going into the detail. Then Gandharva Veda, which is music, Vastu Shastra, civil engineering, Artha Shastra, political science and economics, Nyay, logic, Manovigyan, psychology. So, yeah, when I talk about Manovigyan in Indian knowledge system in psychology, I often give examples of Bhagavad Gita as a text on psychology, right? So if you study Bhagavad Gita, you will see that it's a dialogue between Arjuna, the distressed. In chapter 1, Visada Yoga, that means the yoga of depression. Visad means depression. So the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita is called Yoga of Depression. It talks about the depressed conditions of Arjun, and verses after verses it describes how Arjun's hand is trembling, how his mouth is drying up, how his hairs are standing on the end, how his Gandiva is falling from the hand, how his whole body is shaking. So these are typical symptoms of neurosis or psychosis, right? And then Krishna comes as a counselor and does the counseling by talking, right? We go to modern day psychotherapists for talking, for speaking, and the same thing happened in Bhagavad Gita. So it's a text on psychology. Next, after going through these examples of bits and pieces and understanding that on each of these bits and pieces we can have workshops and conferences to dive deeper, to go much deeper, to discuss, to debate, to accept, to challenge, and to reject, to modify, to appreciate our understanding, right? So next section I would like to devote on India knowledge system and the science of prayers. The reason I'm choosing it, because though many of us may be accepting that yes, there may be some truth, even if an epsilon or delta amount of truth is there in the Indian knowledge system about modern scientific theories, modern scientific discoveries, etc., but still we tend to deny the scientific power of prayers, right? So here are some aspects of the connection between IKS and the science of prayers that I found interesting as motivational examples. So as you can see here that through modern fMRI scanning of the brain, we can now understand how different sound vibrations affect the brain, affects the different alpha, beta, gamma, delta waves that are generated in different regions of brain, in the frontal cortex and in the medulla and in the other regions, right? So this shows a scientific study on how Samaveda chanting tunes the waves in the brain that are generated in a male of age 20 to 25, right? So there is a lot of synchronization in the wave when such a chanting is played. Then in Harvard Medical School, which is one of the topmost medical school in the world, there was a conference series started in April 2015 on healing by chanting and music. And this conference has been going on since 2015 annually every year. So you can go to Harvard Medical School website to know the details about it. And it talks about mostly medical effects and therapeutic effects of chanting and music on stress, on heart attacks, on brain strokes, on insomnia, on Alzheimer's disease, on chronic pain, etc. Okay. You can go to the website www.musictherapy.org, which is of American Music Therapy Association, and they have a lot of scientific studies on promoting wellness, managing stress, alleviating pain, expressing feelings, enhancing memory, improving communication, promoting physical rehabilitation, all related to the power of sound, the power of music, and the power of chanting, right? Then I came across a laser by Dr. Sarah Laser, who herself is a psychologist at Harvard Medical School. and she had obtained a research grant from NIH, National Institute of Health, the largest grant giving organization in the field of medical science in United States, to study the effect of meditation and chanting on the brain structure, right? And she discovered that the cortical areas become thicker in meditators, right? And in a later study, there was an article in Harvard Med School website, which you can search, that continuous 8 months of meditation changes the concentration of gray matter in the brain. So you develop more gray matters in your brain if you meditate concentratedly for 8 months consecutively. Okay. And this is not only about a particular religion, right? We are talking about the science of prayer, science of chanting, science of communication, and this is there irrespective of any specific religious belief system. So, for example, there are articles, Indian Journal of Psychiatry, published by Sabir Ahmed and Anand Prakash, on namas and yoga for mental health. So this is also part of Indian knowledge system. Then, in the New Testament, it talks about Lord's prayers in the Gospel of Matthew and the Gospel of Luke. And on that, analyzing that, there are 2 scientific papers published in 2008 and 2009, and shows that during the Gregorian chanting of the church, the brain scan showed activation in frontal and temporal regions. Okay. And there's a funny connection to the diagram I have shown from Vulvulaya, because it used the chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Ram. And there is a PhD thesis by David Wolf under Professor Neil Abel, performed in Florida State University in 1999, on the effect of Hare Krishna Mahamantra on stress, depression, and the 3 modes of passion. Then there is a body of research on prayer with water. Why I have taken this example in Indian knowledge system is because Indian knowledge system is heavy on using water, right? And again, these water prayers is not only related to a particular religion, a Hindu religion or so. We have the concept of holy water in Islam. We have the concept of holy water in Christianity as well. So this is also a very general science, a very general body of knowledge of spirituality, right? And we can connect it to Japanese scientist Masaru Emoto's experiments on the effect of prayers on water, right? And he took 2 samples of water from the Fujiwara Dam in Japan, and the dam is known for pollution, for containing toxic material. So he took water in 2 containers. One container he kept as it is. On the other container, he did some prayers and offering for 1 hour. And then when you do a study those water under electron microscope, then you see patterns emerging out on the second water. And he wrote a book which became New York Times bestseller, which is called The Hidden Messages in Water. Then in 2012, when I had began studying quantum information for a couple of years at that time, I found a mainstream scientific article published in the famous journal Physics Essays, volume 25, talks about consciousness and the double-slit interference pattern, 6 experiments. So it talks about 6 different experiments performed in 6 different laboratories in different countries, performed by different groups of physicists, but the results are very much correlated, very much consistent. And it talks about that we have quantum random processes which are supposed to be truly random and generating truly random numbers, let's say up and down or left or right in these features, so that 50% is up, 50% is down, or 50% is left, 50% is right. So in that way, it is supposed to generate perfectly uniform random numbers. But if people perform meditation on the device, on the quantum device, outside the device, if I perform meditation and I pray that let there be more ones than zeros, let there be more heads than tails, let there be more up electron spin than down, then it happens in reality, and the result appear biased. This is very surprising, and of course they also quantified that the amount of bias that is observed unnaturally in the supposed to be uniform natural phenomena, that amount of bias depends on how many meditators are meditating in the room of the experiment. So the number of meditators, it depends on that. So group meditation seems to influence more than single meditation. And also it talks about that the experience of the meditators, that means the number of years they have performed meditation, that also matters, right? The more years of practice a meditator has, he or she has more control on the bias, okay, of the experiments. Okay. Of course, we all know about touch therapy or Reiki or energy healing, right? So that is there. And it can be explained by modern scientific pulse electromagnetic field therapy, which says that if you emit a 2 hertz frequency, then that helps in nerve regeneration. If you emit a 7 hertz frequency to the patient, then it helps in bone growth. Then if you give 10 hertz frequency to the patient, it heals ligaments. Similarly, 15 and 20 hertz, that decrease skin necrosis, that helps in capillary formation, that helps in fibroblast proliferation. 25 hertz frequency, that has synergistic effect with nerve regrowth. Okay, and all these studies, there are scientific papers on these studies. So for example, Dr. John Zimmerman, University of Colorado, showed the energy release in Reiki is actually in the form of electromagnetic pulses at frequencies scanning between 0.5 hertz and 30 hertz, right? So you see the frequencies written in blue are experimental observation by scientists in the lab, whereas Dr. Zimmerman performed experiments to validate what frequencies does the Reiki practitioners or energy healers emit from their hands just by their prayers. And they found that they are in the regime of 0.5 hertz to 30 hertz, which are exactly the healing frequencies established medically. Okay. And since then, the Federal Drug Administration, FDA, the standardizing body in United States on medicines and drugs, they approved such therapy from 2011 on patients who are failing to respond to antidepressants. So there are some patients who are supposed to take antidepressants or sleeping pills in order to cure their mental disease or neural disease. On them, this kind of therapy was officially approved. Okay. Then we know about this ancient punishment of pulling our ears from the opposite hands and performing sit-up while holding our ears. This is now called super brain yoga, as can be shown from the research of Dr. Joy Jones, former professor, Department of Radiological Sciences, University of California, Irvine. Right? And so by performing this exercise, actually these ear endings have specific nerves which are triggered, which causes blood flow activation in the brain, helping us to remember more easily, to learn concepts more easily, okay, which has been practiced in Indian knowledge system, in Indian school system as a standard punishment since ages. Then I'd like to highlight a strange connection of Indian knowledge system and the science of consciousness, okay, which is not talked about much on the pretext of superstition or belief. So the Indian knowledge system theory of consciousness mostly deals with soul, reincarnation, and the law of karma. Interestingly, modern scientific theories of consciousness, let us look at them. One prominent scientific theory is by John Eccles, who is a Nobel laureate in physiology and medicine, which is called the psychon theory. The second theory is by Pribram, which is a neuropsychologist, and Bohm, quantum physicist, which is called holonomic brain theory. And the third is the Hameroff, which is an anesthesiologist, and Penrose, which is a physicist. This Penrose is the same Penrose who was the PhD supervisor of Stephen Hawking. Okay. His research on quantum cellular automata in microtubules. Microtubules are microproteins in brain whose quantum fluctuations give rise to consciousness. So that was his theory about. Interestingly, all these well-accepted modern scientific theory of consciousness feel the need of a conscious self, like soul, which is different from our body and our brain. And in this matter, I would like to quote Dr. Albert Szent-Zairogi, who is a Hungarian physiologist who was the discoverer of vitamin C and who got Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine. He told, in my search for the secret of life, I ended up with atoms and electrons which have no life at all. Somewhere along the line, life has run out through my fingers. So in my old age, I am now retracing my steps. Means I am going back from the atoms and electrons to higher self. Then Dr. Wilfred G. Bigelow, who was the former head of the cardiovascular surgery unit at Toronto General Hospital, and he was also the co-inventor of pacemaker that we use very much nowadays to keep rhythm in the heart. His perception was that soul research should be undertaken by theology and allied discipline within the university. Okay. Then research by Dr. Ian Stevenson was an MD doctor, former head of Department of Psychiatry at the University of Virginia. He became famous for his book, 20 Cases Suggestive of Reincarnation. So his purpose was to eliminate the concept of reincarnation and to deny the concept, to prove that the concept is false. He started his research, and for 30 years he had performed this research. Now the same research is being continued by his collaborators and students. He is no longer there. So in search of proofs of establishing that reincarnation is wrong, finally he arrived at 20 cases which he could not discard, okay, and included in this book. He could not explain by an already planned incident. He could not explain it by cultural history. He could not explain it by a conspiracy theory, right? Even there are some cases in some cultures who have no concept of soul or reincarnation in their culture. So they don't, forget about billing, they don't have any idea of such notions. So in those society also he found some examples. So with that, this book became published officially by the University Press of the University of Virginia. Okay. And then several other research followed where reincarnation and biology intersect. Then Many Lives, Many Masters, written by Dr. Brian L. Weiss. Then Life After Life, written by neuropsychiatrist Raymond Moody. Then Children's Past Life, written by Carol Bowman, etc. So these are all written not by fiction authors, but by medical practitioners. That's why I'm citing this. Okay. Then finally, as the organizers, some of the organizers of this conference are from the computer science department, and I'm also from the computer science background. So last but not the least, I would like to talk about some connection between Indian knowledge system and computer science. So we know about Panini, right? His famous Ashtadhyayi was written in 4th century BC, and it is known for formulation of 3996 rules of Sanskrit morphology, basically syntax and semantics of Sanskrit grammar, right? Ashtadhyayi means Ashta Adhyay, or 8 chapters. So he has broken down. And now we know that his rules are the backbone of what modern computer science calls Bacchus-Naur form, or Panini-Bacchus form, a notational technique to describe what is called context-free grammars. Now, those of us who know programming languages, those of us who know formal language and automata theory, we know that any programming language, whether it's C, C++, Java, Python, doesn't matter, any programming language can be described by context-free grammar. And the Panini's grammar rules, or Bacchus-Naur form, or Panini-Bacchus form, are nothing but a way to describe context-free grammars, right? So in that way, it forms the backbone of any programming language. And this is not what I am claiming or any popular article is claiming. One reference of this you can find in by Donald Knuth, who is famous for his Art of Computer Programming book, right, which is kind of the Bible of algorithms. So Donald Knuth wrote in this paper as early as 1964, Communications of the ACM, page 735 and 736, he talks about this power of Panini's grammar. And also later in 1967, in the same journal, there is a subsequent research by Ingerman, also re-establishing the same theory. And this is Donald Knuth. So after writing The Art of Computer Programming, Volume 1, Volume 2, 3, and 4, writing on fundamental algorithms, semi-numerical algorithms, sorting and searching, and then combinatorial algorithm, he is now writing the 5th volume, which is on, I think, bioinformatics or biological inspired algorithm. And he is like close to 100, between 90 and 100 years old. And he says that the goal of his life is to finish that book before he hits 100. He's also famous for the book Concrete Mathematics. As the name suggests, concrete is a combination of term continuous and discrete. So he has taken con from continuous and crete from discrete to say concrete mathematics, which talks about the connection, the interplay of both continuous domain and discrete domain mathematics. Okay. So when I came across this book by Donald Knuth, this book by this book, 3:1.6, Bible Texts Illuminated. So Donald Knuth gave a series of lecture, things a computer scientist rarely talks about. And in those series of lecture, one of the lecture was the verses 3:16 from Bible. Why he chose this set of verses is very interesting. No. We know that the value of pi, if we approximate, it close to 3.15 or 3.16. So he took that 3.16 numbered verses from every chapter of Bible and showed that there is a strange connection between them. Okay. There is a strange connection between them. Okay, so 3.16, okay, it's not pi, but it's close to the square root of 10. So pi is 3.1412, something like that. 3.16, I just remember, it's square root of 10. So the square root of 10 numbered verses has a strange connection between themselves. Okay, so that's very interesting. And with that, I like to mention that if world famous computer scientists like Donald Knuth can try to find mathematics within Bible, then we as Indian scientists, be it from computer science background or from other science background, should be able to identify, validate, accept, reject, formulate scientific facts in Indian knowledge system as well. Okay, so that was the motivation behind this slide. Okay, now I am towards the last part of my talk. In 2020, the Ministry of Education has established an Indian Knowledge Systems Division, which is called IKS Division, whose vision is to rejuvenate and mainstream Indian knowledge system for the contemporary world, and whose objective is to completely decolonize Indian mind by generating interest and healthy critical reverence for the unbroken knowledge traditions of Bharata for the welfare of the world. The activities of IK's India division is mentioned as they support and fund the establishment of IKS Center. I think by now there are more than 20 centers that are established in many IITs to perform interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary research. They also conduct internship program for undergraduate students. They conduct faculty development programs, workshop, text mining, and documentation project, many outreach activities in partnership with other institutes. They maintain an IKS Wiki portal for article publishing in various Bharatiya languages for fostering a broader dissemination and engagement with traditional knowledge systems. So you can go to their website and find more details. Then there is a UGC guideline for Indian knowledge system in higher education published just last year, 2023. The salient features of this guideline is that every student enrolled in an undergraduate or a postgraduate program should be encouraged to take credit courses in Indian knowledge system, amounting in all to at least 5% of the total mandated credit. So 5% is the minimum marks or credit that one student should enroll for the IKS, but there is no upper limit. So if a student wants, they can study the IKS as the mainstream subject as well. But this 5% is mandatory for any field. Like even if you are studying science or arts or commerce, or within arts you are studying something else not related to IKS, but still you have to have at least 5% credit, which is not much of the total credit. It's a lower bound. And then out of that 5%, 50% of that 5%, that means 2.5% of total, should be related to your major discipline and should be accounted for the credit assigned to the major discipline, right? And then apart from these, all the students should take a foundational course in Indian knowledge system, which will make them, informed about different aspects of IKS. Then all UG teaching institutions should offer a large number of elective courses in IKS as well. So this foundational course is kind of a mandatory course, but then there will be elective course specializing in, let's say, mathematics in Indian knowledge system, astronomy in Indian knowledge system, medicines in Indian knowledge system, and so on and so forth. Okay. Then universities, there are some universities in India which are actually designated as Sanskrit university or Indian language universities, right? So the guideline says that they should develop and become universities of Indian knowledge system. So like an IKS university, that category, but without giving up their focus on Sanskrit or the Indian language of their region, right? And on the other hand, the PG courses, postgraduate courses, master degree courses in disciplines that are part of IKS, for example, Master of Arts in Indian Music or Master of Arts in Indian Philosophy, Indian Systems of Medicine, they need to be redesigned to be rooted in the perspective of IKS. So these are kind of core subject in IKS. So they should be redesigned in order to reflect. Okay, so with that, I will end my talk here and accept any questions that you may have.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome. Yeah, I'm looking at the chat box if there is any query.
Sir, one question is, what are the different types of Indian knowledge system?
Can you explain what do you mean by different types?
According to NEP.
Oh, that I actually quoted, right? Acha, let me go to the slide, relevant slide. So, according to NEP, both qualitatively and quantitatively, I had given a list. So, qualitatively, the Indian knowledge system comprises of this knowledge, wisdom, and truth. And quantitatively, what is Indian knowledge system? They combine the entire body of Gyan, Vigyan, and Jivan Darshan that has evolved out of experience, observation, experimentance, and rigorous analysis in the field of, as you can see, education, arts, administration, law, justice, health, manufacturing, and commerce. So, pretty much all body of knowledge that we encounter today that has its own Indian knowledge system counterpart, right? So, it is not that there is a field where Indian knowledge system does not exist. So I have given some examples, but we can add many more into the list where we have a modern counterpart and we have an Indian knowledge system counterpart, right? So so the goal of national education policy is to make a bridge between the two. The Indian knowledge system, that means the knowledge that we have been carrying for thousands of years on these subjects, right? They may be at the theoretical level, they may be at the modeling level, they may be at the hypothesis level. But we need to combine that with modern scientific ways of performing experiment, obtaining data, analyzing the result, performing statistical analysis, and conclude how much to accept, how much to retain, how much to modify. So there has to be a synergy between the Indian knowledge system and the modern knowledge system. And then the entire knowledge ecosystem would evolve cohesively by combining the two. So that is the goal. Okay. So every topic of knowledge or every subject of knowledge has two counterparts. One is the IKS counterpart, one is the Indian one is the Indian knowledge system, IKS counterpart, one is the modern counterpart, right? But the goal of NEP is to combine the two, to integrate the two.
Thank you, Professor. The next question, what is the vision of NEP 2020?
Oh, the vision of NEP 2020, I had already explained. There are many visions. So I think let me go to one slide. I think page number 5 I was mentioning. Right. Second. Yes. So if you go to page 5 and 6, right, that contains 22 bullets, which can be thought of as the vision or the principles of NEP 2020. So it talks about many things. Actually, I have quoted here bullet 20, which is connected to Indian knowledge system. But if you go through all the bullets, you will see that there is the concept of multidisciplinary or holistic education on one point, as I recall. There is a concept of ethics and human and constitutional values, like, for example, the empathy, the pluralism, equality, justice, responsibility, liberty, etc. Then there is promoting multilingualism and the power of language. That means we should not have a single language for education like Hindi or English. We should have we should be fostering all the languages. In fact, teaching in regional languages are also encouraged. Then there is synergy in curriculum across all levels of education. So, for example, right now there is a separation between primary education, mid school education, high school education, and above. Right? We often see a disconnect in some aspects. So the goal is to make them well connected, so that smoothly one can transform from one level to the other. Then there is a concept of light but tight framework, right? So light framework in terms of audiovisual learning, in terms of out of the box ideas, in terms of learning by games, learning by non-traditional methods. But this light will be tight because it will be under regulatory framework. So there has to be the concept of integrity, the concept of transparency, the concept of resource efficiency, in the education system. Okay. Then there will be a research component, right? Then there will be a review of progress in the NEP, and education in the context of public service. That means access to education, will be a public service. That means access to quality education must be considered basic fundamental of every child, which is there in the constitution but not implemented in practice. So NEP makes it mandatory. And then life skills are also there as vision. So for example, learning the art of communication, learning the art of cooperation, learning the art of teamwork, all these life skills also will be part of the curriculum. So we can go on and on about it. So these are the primary points.
Thank you, sir. The next question, what is the relationship between consciousness and knowledge?
Okay, what is the relationship between consciousness and knowledge? Very interesting question. So consciousness is a mechanism by which we experience knowledge, right? So imagine if we would not have any consciousness, if we would be just a bunch of chemicals, a neutral object, right? Then the knowledge is there, but we would not be able to experience the knowledge or apply the knowledge. So I would say that consciousness stands as a bridge between the knowledge and the application of knowledge, right? Otherwise knowledge will stay as it is. Like in terms of Shannon entropy, the information bits will be spread all over the universe, but what is the use of it unless someone experiences the knowledge and try to use the knowledge. So I would say that is the connection between consciousness and knowledge.
Thank you, sir. The next question, do NEP 2020 has any correlation with ancient Indian Gurukul system or NEP 2020 visualized to make our education at par to Western education systems?
No. So definitely will not be following the Western education system side by side, but there will be importance of Gurukul system. So even if for practical reasons the Gurukul system cannot be implemented as a Gurukul, right? So one aspect was that we had to go to the forest, the mountains, in order to have access to a Gurukul in earlier days. But nowadays these are not possible. But subject wise, we can move towards that Gurukul system. Like one teacher who is a master of one subject, so in the classroom we can develop the environment of that Gurukul system. Like so, questioning the Guru, serving the Guru, understanding concept from the Guru. So that mood we can follow, definitely. But at this age, it is not possible physically to go back to the Gurukul system, right? But we can follow the principles of the Gurukul system, the modality of teaching in the Gurukul system. Because in the Gurukul, if you recall, that in those days, many concepts the students used to learn by practically doing it, by doing the life-based work, right? So they used to, collect woods from the forest. They used to cook for themselves. They used to clean their clothes themselves, right? They used to make the household of the Gurukul clean, and they used to study, right? So these concept, the self-help concept, that is there already before NEP 2020. Also, there are some residential schools in India which I have seen. It's there in Kerala, it's there in Karnataka, it's there in Pune, Maharashtra. I've seen some schools which actually implement the core values or the concepts of Gurukul system. So they have modern amenities, they have modern facilities, but they encourage the students to do their work themselves, to live their livelihood themselves, right? To clean themselves, to cook themselves, even from grade 3 or grade 4. Of course, the seniors are there to help them, and they have teaching in classroom, teaching outside class, teaching in nature. These kind of concepts are there. So we have to have a balanced mix of the two. That is my final comment on this.
Thank you, Professor.
Yes.
Next is, what do you feel about the upcoming challenges with NEP and improvement in NEP 2020?
Okay. See, the upcoming challenges will always be there. Whenever we are trying to modify a system which is existing for many, many years, there are two types of problem. One type of problem will be there will be a lot of resistance because many people try to politicalize it, right? Of course, in our country, nothing is possible without politics. But we should think, like, if you read the NEP document carefully, you will find that there are many things which are not political in nature. And there are many things which we ourselves have discussed, have known, have understood, and has been appreciated by the common mass while passing through those different political influences. So my point is that NEP 2020 is just an attempt. It is the first attempt to bring back our heritage, to add our heritage to the modern education, right? But many people are viewing it as a regressive nature, as if we are going back, as if we are discarding all the scientific results, as if we are becoming pseudoscientists, as if nobody will study modern science anymore. It is not that. At least as far as the NEP 2020 document goes, which was officially published by the Ministry of Education, it is not there. If you read the document today, also I have quoted many sentences from the document itself. So it does not look that officially in writing we are regressing or we are going back. Rather, we are progressing towards a good synergy. We are bringing back our old heritage and adding it with the modern scientific knowledge, right? So that way, NEP has a lot of challenge and a lot of resistance to face. And what I would say is that NEP 2020 is not a frozen document. As the policies are implemented slowly, as people create the curriculum, the courseworks, the syllabus, then there will be a lot of discussions, and then things will change, things will be modified, so that better and better version will come. Probably the first version of the curriculum and the syllabus would not be perfect. But then with continuous feedback from the students, from the teachers, from the parents, from the intellectual people around the country, in a democratic country like ours, I feel that eventually we'll reach a kind of equilibrium, a balanced equilibrium stage. Okay, so that is my perception.
Thank you, sir. What is the single greatest tool for achieving social justice and equality according to NEP 2020?
See, it is not explicitly stated, so you cannot actually isolate, hey, this sentence or this word is actually the greatest tool for achieving social justice or equality in terms of NEP 2020. Like no one can claim that. The point is that you can say in one way education is the single greatest tool, right? In one way you can say that, and at one place in NEP it indeed says education is the single greatest tool for achieving social justice and equality. But the point is, what kind of education? It is not that education was lacking in India, right? Education was there in Middle Ages also. Education was there in Dark Ages also. So the point is, definitely education is the single greatest tool for achieving social justice and equality, but what kind of education? And that is the whole purpose of new education policy. So we need an education which does not discard our ancient, our past, our heritage, our Indian knowledge system. We need an education which rejuvenates the Indian knowledge system, which makes it alive side by side, which has been overshadowed by Western education system, so that together Western and Eastern education system in a balanced way can establish the social justice and equality, right? Whenever you are shutting your eyes to your own heritage, your own roots, automatically social justice and equality is not possible. Because if you look at our Indian knowledge system, the whole Indian philosophy is based on social justice and equality. Okay. So I remember in as old as 2006, I had written an article entitled Communism in the Light of Bhagavad Gita. So, I was establishing that how different verses of Bhagavad Gita talks about the same principle of communism that has been spoken by Karl Marx, and how we can actually implement communism, spiritual communism, social communism. That's what is all about social justice and equality, right? In a country like ours. So definitely Indian knowledge system has a lot important role to play to enable education become a tool for achieving social justice and equality.
Thank you, sir. Wonderful session, sir.
Thank you. Let me Okay, thank you
Just a minute.
for organizing this. Yes.
Sir, this is for you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sir, one request. Please turn on all of you for your camera.
Yeah, my camera is turned on already.
Yes, sir. Definitely turn on. Sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Welcome.